Welcome back to the next episode of The Doggone Truth. Tonight's episode is very special and pertains to the month of October specifically. And every year this comes up. It shocks me that it has been another year since we've talked about it, because I think this is probably the third year in a row. Before we dive into it, who is on the call with me? I have the most amazing, fantastic, wonderful co-host, Rita Napaloo, if you'd like to say hi.
Greetings, people. Thanks for having me tonight.
Also on the call, we have Amy, Linda, and Judy. If you could just quickly, we'll start with Amy, just title with Always and Furever, and a little bit of a background, and then we'll go to Linda and Judy, and then we'll dive into tonight's topic. So Amy?
Amy Stecker. I know you were avoiding saying my last name because you probably didn't know how to say it.
I never say last names. I usually only say first. I only say size because it's spelled with a G, so people always mispronounce it. So I make it a point to say Napaloo.
Yes. You can't say my name either.
Yeah, I was going to say, with no easy ones here. I don't know what my title is. Longtime volunteer, I guess. But yeah, we'll get into the story of what David was planning and why we chose October as our David's Day tribute every year. We told it last year, but we'll tell it again this year, how me and Judy are involved. Yeah, I do a little bit of everything from the boarding dogs, which is where I first met David, to anything that's needed, honestly.
Perfect. Linda?
I'm Linda. I am just a volunteer once in a while, occasionally.
I'm going to correct you there because I always stop volunteers when they're like, I'm just a volunteer. Volunteers are what run this organization.
I am this fantastic, wonderful volunteer.
Much better.
Occasionally. And I'm also David's mother.
Perfect. Judy, this isn't your first rodeo, but
I'm Judy. Along with Amy, I'm a longtime volunteer. I'm a member of the board. I used to be vet driver, but now I'm an all-around person. I help out Julie McNamara with the med team. And I've been partner in crime with David when we drove dogs together. And through David, I got to be friends with Linda.
Cool.
And she still calls David on the phone.
He calls me. I have a story about that I will share later.
We will get to it. So the name has been brought up in all of the introductions, David. Let's give a little bit of a background on David. So Linda, I will let you share the story of David.
How we got involved?
However you want to go with it. If this is my first time listening to the podcast and I know nothing about David or David's Day, what would be a good background for that?
We cried last year too. It's fine.
Yeah, we all cried.
Oh, yes.
No, David and I he moved back home from Indiana and was at loose ends. So way back years ago, we came to a volunteer meeting, first or second one held at the Little Red Barn. I had seen something somewhere about it and knew David was nuts about dogs. So we went to this orientation at the Little Red Barn. As I sat there, I thought, oh my gosh, they have no clue what they're doing. Little did I know, they really didn't at the time. David was hooked. He knew right away that he was wanting to do stuff. That's how we got involved, because he would drag me along with him. And
he would bring dogs to you?
Oh, yeah. Every time he decided I needed to foster a dog, I have had two. And then he'd say, this one needs to stay in the night somewhere. And I'd end up with another one. In fact, I still have one. Well, two. I also inherited his cat, which if you knew me, I am not a cat person. I have been won over by this mean-tempered cat, and that's his story.
Thank you, Linda. And then Amy or Judy, if you want to talk about how and why we now celebrate David's Day.
I think I'll let Judy talk a little about their time together, because I honestly didn't meet David until probably just a couple months before. Now, he was in the groups. I felt like I knew him because personality just shines through, but it was COVID times and we didn't see each other as much as a group, we were still functioning, but the big events weren't happening. The gatherings weren't happening. And so you kind of had to cross paths. Now, Judy and David, I'll let Judy talk a little bit about, obviously worked side by side, and then I'll kind of talk about what happened from there.
We were the two main vet drivers, and every day, and usually 6 days a week, we come up with vet appointments for the mini dogs that are at our facilities or at our fosters. So David and I were really busy. Some days there were 6 or 7 vet appointments on the schedule. We would plan every day who would be driving. He'd go in one direction and I would go in the other. And so I did this for a couple of years at least. Sometimes we took multiple dogs. And so we would meet at the same place and then load them into both of our vehicles. We had a great system. We talked almost every night to look at the next day and try to figure out what we were going to do. We just had a blast. David was also a part of the group that played what we call the name game. Linda can add to this, but when a new dog came in, we would have to change the name of that dog, usually. And so we all got on the phone, and David was sort of the leader of that group to think up the most original name that we had never had before. And it got ridiculous at times. And there was a time when he was moving houses. So he was living with Linda, and she got to listen to the name game.
What was the worst name?
Well, I think what we always talked about was Jen would start throwing out just hundreds of names like ketchup, paprika, pickle. And David would try to guess where she was in her house. So we had amazing names. And I think one of my very favorite stories was the fact, you've heard this story before, but I'll make it really short. That was back in the days when we had no staff out at the Osawatomie shelter. And when you went out to pick up a dog, you went out very early on a cold, dark morning down a long, dark road in the mud, in the gravel, creeped around the back of the tin building in the woods, tried to find the hidden key, unlock the 2 padlocks, go in and get a dog who was usually going crazy in a crate, and then load them up all by yourself in the dark. So I really enjoyed it when David and I had to take multiple dogs because we could be out there together and helping each other out. And so one day we went out in the rain. It was horrible. David's wheelchair just barely made it over the rim of the door, and he would do a wheelie to jump over the threshold of the pound to get in. He led this giant dog out who was raring to go, made it across the threshold, leaped over the threshold, hit a puddle and gravel, and wheelchair went one way, dog went the other. David went with the dog. He never let go of that leash, and he went skidding down the road to the pound. And we were both laughing so hard. It was amazing. But he kept saying, I didn't let go. And he didn't. He hung in there.
Amazing. Where we are present day now, how many years has it been since David passed?
A little over 3.
It is 3?
Yeah, so I actually got to meet Linda for the first time. I had thrown out the idea in a group chat, which our group chats were awesome, by the way. I mean, they still are, but we lost a big part of the reason they were awesome because they just never stopped when David was involved in them. But I threw out in a group chat that I had been listening to this radio morning show, and this guy had walked across the state of, I think it was Tennessee, raising money for foster kids or something. I don't know. He raised like $100K or something. I don't remember. I just remember throwing the idea out of we need to do something dramatic like that to raise a bunch of money, because at the time we were trying to buy the homestead. We needed to renovate Osawatomie. And so I just threw it out in the group. There was lots of people in the group, and I don't think it took 2 seconds. And David responded, well, I'll ride my bike across the camp. Well, actually, no. He said, I will ride my wheelchair across the state of Kansas, is what he said. We quickly all told him he's not doing that. So it turned into he would ride his bike, and he was serious. He wanted to ride his bike across the state of Kansas. He was going to raise $100,000. And so we had a group meeting, and that's when I first got to meet the beautiful Linda. And Judy, were you there? Shelby was there, but And we had one planning meeting, and he was going to start that first weekend in October of that year. I still don't know how we would have pulled that all together. It's a lot of planning we met in June, it's July, August, September. I mean, that was like 4 months. We were going to plan for him to ride his bike across Kansas. Linda was going to do a van that rode behind him. We were going to collect supplies to drop off at rural shelters along the way. We were going to bring TK and other dogs. I mean, there's a lot of details that needed to be done. But then unfortunately, we didn't make it to our next meeting. So that's how David's Day got to happen in October, because we did it at the time of when he was going to take off for his bike ride.
Judy or Amy, if you want to talk about things we've done in the past for David's Day and how successful it's been.
I'll do this, and Amy, then you can talk about the global spread, because we're kind of proud. Amy really was behind that. Jen pointed out today that there are so many people involved with our organization who didn't have the chance to know David. And so I thought we should mention that David did pass away in a car accident while he was driving Annabelle, one of our foster dogs, to the vet. And it was especially horrendous to all of us, because of the fact that he was doing what we did every day. So we really wanted to have a way we remember him every day, and I keep him on my phone. So I pocket dial him, or he appears on my phone at weird moments all the time. He's still a very special part of our organization. And so Amy really did take the lead in trying to put together the very first David's Day.
Yeah, the first one, it was awesome. I wish I actually had the map. It's at the barn, but we actually put on a map everywhere that someone participated. And so what we asked, because he was really big into the rural shelters, he loved Osawatomie. I always say that wrong. We asked everyone to volunteer at a rural shelter near them, or collect donations and take them to a rural shelter near them, and to do that in any community that they were at. And then we tracked it on a map. I think it was something like 30 something states, several countries. I mean, there was one in the Middle East, there was Australia, in Asia, it was all over. And then we hashtagged it David's Day. And so at the time, it's been a little too long now that if you search it, you have to search through a lot of other stuff. But at the time, if you put in hashtag David's Day, you would just get hundreds of pictures of people in their sunflowers, yellow shirts, just doing good that day. And it raised, because his goal was to raise 100,000. So that was our goal. We didn't quite make it. I think we raised 60,000 the first year. But that alone, he would have been so thrilled about. And then the next year, we did the same thing. I think we raised another 10 or 15,000. And then last year we switched it a little bit, and we did a stuff the RV. Jen put the RV on the homestead, and that stayed more local. We still asked people to do good. And then Linda did her bike ride last year, because obviously this whole thing was David was going to ride his bike across the state of Kansas. And so Linda did a bike ride. You'll have to say the details, because I will screw them up if I say how far you rode or where you rode. But she did that in David's honor, and she can tell the details. And she raised 10,000, which I know he would have been so proud, because if it was up to you, you probably would have just not raised any money and just done it. But he would have told you to raise the money and share the pictures, which you did.
Yeah.
So
we rode last year. My two brothers and I went to South Dakota, and we rode McPherson. I believe it's McPherson. Anyway, it's a 108-mile bike trail through Black Hills, and we rode it mainly to take David to the mountains. He loved to travel. So we have him so that we can, whenever we go someplace, we take him with us.
Gosh, Linda, if you would have told me that earlier, I could have taken him to Blue Springs a couple of times this month.
Blue Springs. That was his favorite ride, was to Blue Springs. He didn't mind it so much during COVID. It was a lot better. But so he traveled a lot. I took him there. But that was his ride.
And you finished it.
We did. My brothers, who are older than me, we all three finished it. And it was a good week. Good week.
That is wonderful.
I think the most important thing about David's Day, I mean, every year we do something a little different. And this year we're going to paint the barn. which he would have jumped right in, had probably a lot of jokes about, but he would have helped out.
Barn.
We're going to paint the barn, their little red barn. Because if you see the picture of TK's new house up against the barn, you see how worn the barn is. So we're just going to gather, get it freshly painted. We're just asking people to do something good that day. I think the most important thing about David's Day now is just keeping his memory alive, because we have the amount that we have grown in the last 3 years is just astronomical. And for those of us that have been around, I mean, all of us that are on this call that have been around, we can't imagine not knowing who David was, or any of our longtime volunteers, or Danielle, or, anyone that we've lost. We can't imagine not knowing, but we get new followers every day. And so I think it's just keeping his story, his memory, his spirit alive, and for our new followers to feel like, and we get that a lot, that I never got to meet him, but I feel like I know him. I think that's the best thing for people to be able to say. That means we're telling his story.
I like on the podcast every year, we're up to over almost 18,000 downloads, and now in 769 cities, 19, this is continuing to grow. And for us to only really talk about it once a year, I feel like it has to be a staple of every single year to check back in, David's Day, tell all of our new listeners about it, and just going.
It was one of the funniest times would be at night. David would be sitting on his computer, his iPad and his computer, and I'd keep hearing ding, 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 ding. And it was Judy and Jen and everybody else discussing names for incoming dogs.
Those messages went late into the night.
Yes, and it would be so funny to watch him and listen to him, because he'd start giggling and type something and then giggle again. And David had a very wicked sense of humor, and he used it frequently and freely.
He was a daredevil too, Linda. I wanted you to tell the story of when he was a little kid and actually I think he had spent some time in the hospital. You can tell the story, but I remember you telling me the story of when he first got a wheelchair as a child. Do you remember the story I'm talking about?
I think this is the one with the dog.
Yes.
Yes. See, it just home from the hospital from losing his leg. We lived in a townhome and got home, and one of the neighbors brought over a puppy for him to see and play with. So of course, David takes the dog's leash and the puppy takes off running.
6, right? Or very young kid, right?
Oh, he was 6. Yes, he was 6. And he hits a curb or a crack in the sidewalk, and his wheelchair stopped automatically, and the puppy and him kept going, and he goes flying and rolling. And that was the beginning of how I always knew he was okay, because he just bounced right back up. The dog was licking him in the face and everybody was laughing. So he he learned playing basketball that he would fall and how to flip up in the chair without getting out of it. Had lots of multi-talents. He could go down steps. Ups tend to be a problem, but he could go down steps in his chair.
He played one of our, we all still have the video. One of the last group activities we all had together was the first ice hockey tournament. And Jen was trying to make everybody get on the ice. And many of us were not ice skaters whatsoever, like you guys, Sheila and Cy are. Cy especially, wow. But David was out there in the middle of the ice doing wheelies, throwing himself out of his chair. I still have a video of it, and I think it was probably the last group activity we all had together, but he was much braver than any of us and laughing the entire time.
I still regret that I didn't go to that.
Yeah, he was.
I'm sure I had to work or something.
He asked me to come, and I said no. He did the ice thing with my dad when we were traveling once. My dad was very scared, and he was down in the parking lot over the ice in his chair. Come on, Grandpa.
How do you, Grandpa?
Yeah.
This weekend, as Amy said, we're getting together to repaint the Little Red Barn, which we thought it's always been a famous Little Red Barn. And then we got the new building for TK and Copper next to it. And the Little Red Barn looked a little tired. So Jen, of course, decided this was a really good project. So we'll see how many people show up this weekend. Some of us, I know Jane and Connie and I are going to continue our David's Day tradition we've been doing for the last 3 years. There's a little independent rescue running out of a home who takes bottle feeds, but abandoned puppies and kittens. And so we're taking her some supplies this weekend as part of our David's Day reach. And so we're really asking people in whatever community they are, wherever they are, if there's something good you can do, it doesn't have to be animal related, but if there's something that you're doing that's kind of helping your community or helping somebody else, we've got our David's Day logo, which you'll see on this podcast and on our volunteer website. And we'll have it posted where you can print it out on your home printer. Take a picture of yourself doing something good for somebody and be thinking about David's Day and post it, because we'd love to see the reach that we can still have when we're all thinking about the same thing together.
It is very heartwarming to see all the different photos all across. When you really start to see the reach, it doesn't have to cost money either. I mean, that's the other thing. We raised $70,000 those first 2 years. That's great. If you want to donate, that's wonderful, but that's not what we're asking. I mean, it could literally be helping a neighbor, just something outside of what you would do in a normal day. David, we all as a core group chip in, help, but I would say no one probably did it quicker and more than David did. If you needed something, you just asked him. So
yeah, even if when it came down to stealing puppies out of neighborhoods.
I mean, yes.
I will say one of the new features on Instagram, I don't know if it's a new feature, but the filter where it's the add yours photo. So if we can get a hold of whoever is doing the social media to start it of David's Day, of a photo of David's Day for always and forever, and then people can add their photo to it and then continually to grow it.
Oh my God, that's fancy. I don't even know about that.
Yeah. So that'll be probably whoever runs the social media.
Miranda.
We will let Miranda. We will let Miranda know. We will let Miranda know
on that day to do the add yours on the story so everybody from around the country can do. If you do it right now, it's usually big on the first day of the month of everybody will do like a recap of their September. And then it's like,
oh, is that what that is?
Yes. And then you can add yours and it shares that template and then it like gets people to start doing it. So just a recommendation suggestion that I've seen recently that I think this would be a very good time to
You knew about that, Linda, right?
Oh, yeah, I got that down well.
So, yes.
I can handle it.
For the barn painting, is this, we always have to put a disclosure. Is it open for public? Do you have to sign up to do it? Is it just for volunteers with an Always and Forever?
Anybody is welcome. Anybody who comes on the property always signs a waiver.
Okay.
But, if you have your family, if you have your kids who want to get messy, you can probably do that too. We're really welcoming anybody. Jen this is not donor money contributing to the paint or the supplies. This is Jen's personal contribution. I mean, it's her barn actually. So she's buying all the supplies. We're coming with the energy. And if you have a paint roller and especially a paint roller with a pole extension to it or anything, any kind of paint bucket, anything like that, the supplies will be there, but anybody who has a paint roller or a brush, bring that along. We'll have some there. And we're doing it from 10 to 2 on Saturday and Sunday. We may be done by Sunday, but we're going to try to get it at least one coat on that barn. So it'll be fun. It's always fun when people get.
And if you hate painting, if it's like your nemesis, as I know it is some people's, we could use extra hands to help with the dogs. Because some of the dogs are probably not going to like, 10, 15, 20 people outside the barn painting. So we could use extra hands if you want to take a little red barn dog on a dog date. If you want to take them on a walk on the homestead for, a long walk just to get them away from 10 to 2. We could use that as well. So if you've gone through orientation, obviously, and want to help that way versus the painting, we could certainly use that as well. I'm sure we'll have some snacks and some, drinks and stuff there too. So,
And inflatable. Are the inflatables going to be out?
I don't think we're bringing the inflatables out. Don't worry. Don't stress.
You have to mentally prepare for events.
You should. I can't believe you actually brought that up, Sheila.
Yeah, don't bring that up.
Just saying.
I know.
A bouncy house to get the high spots.
Ooh.
That could be entertaining.
It's probably lucky that Jen was involved in another call tonight because everything would be turning 360 on this.
I know. And you know what? Sometimes I catch myself because I almost egg it on a little bit with Jen of just what if, and then I know she'll make it happen. So that's why I could freely speak now because either way.
We'll know whether she listened to the whole episode or not.
Exactly. This will be the fact check. If all of a sudden there's I'm not going to say a single word anymore about it, but if there's inflatables there this weekend, that means she listened to the whole episode.
Well, it's definitely in the David spirit because he was one of those people who, if you gave him the germ of an idea, as Linda and Amy both know, he ran with it.
Talk about biking across.
Yeah. Yeah.
The idea was just, Dave and I were just talking. He was wanting to do something to raise money. And originally he wanted to push his wheelchair across Kansas.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said we shut that down real quick.
Yeah, well, yes. And
or we tried to.
We just wanted to, he just wanted to do something to raise money for Always and Forever.
Mm-hmm.
And he loved bike riding, second love. He combined them.
Is there anything else before or other details about David's Day this weekend to share with our listeners?
I'd say the most important thing is just do something. Whether you knew David or not, do some good, spread the word, post about it. We're going to be sharing stories about David on our page again, just so that those that have followed us in the last 3 years that didn't know him continue to feel like they did know him.
He was very excited to get the accessible bathroom.
Linda, did you see I put his picture on the volunteer page when the bathroom was finished?
Yes, I did.
Well, typically we still can do it for this episode because we'll put the logo on for David's Day, but we always have a cover dog of the episode. Do any of you have a favorite dog right now that's Always and Forever's care looking to find their forever home?
Oh, what's the one out at Oz, the husky?
Oh, I just saw them posted. I know exactly who you're talking about, but I cannot think of the name.
I can't either.
Let me look it up now.
Judy?
The husky at Oz?
Yeah, husky. It's a husky.
Zeus?
No.
Zeus should be the man. Zeus's brother got adopted, and Zeus is still there. And he is a sweetheart. He was just out at the parade on Saturday, and he came to the festival where I was manning the table and just loves everybody. He's a big boy, and so that stops some people, but he is a great dog. He really deserves to find a wonderful home. So we're all going to put our money on Zeus, try to get him a home.
Zeus, the cover dog, and then we'll add on the new logo for David's Day. And we will get this episode out there and hopefully see a lot of everybody out Saturday, Sunday, and sharing good this weekend within the world because we are worldwide. We can make a difference. And usually Sai had to hop off, but our ending tagline, as always, it's never too late for happily ever after. So thank you all for coming on, and we'll be looking to do this episode again next year. So thank you guys.
Thanks.
We'll practice next year, Sheila. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We're going to be so good next year.
We'll do it in person if that's what you like better, Judy.